The Jets do have a game this week, right? Playing the Rams. Last I saw, Rams are about 3-point favorites. I kind of feel like this line is going to get really tight. I think the Jets are going to be a popular upset pick. Rams, warm weather team, flying across the country, early kickoff. I think it's imprinted in people's minds that Sean McVay lost a late season game to the Jets a few years ago, even though it's totally different players and totally irrelevant. I just think that has an impact on some of this stuff. Rams need the game, right? Rams went out. They're going to make the playoffs. They're 8-6. They're kind of in the driver's seat. I don't know how I feel about this one yet in terms of how the Jets are going to play. Part of me thinks that the Rams it's going to be cold, but I don't think the weather's going to be like too bad beyond that. Part of me thinks with how the Rams offense is constructed and coached, they're going to score about 40 points in this game. So one thing I feel confident in is an over in this. Now, I think the Jets can score. And this is sort of the beginning of the Rodgers litmus test and the offense renaissance test, because Jacksonville's the worst defense in football, particularly the worst pass defense in football. Like, they're really bad. So in some ways, you're like, yeah, Rodgers should have thrown for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns because he's Aaron Rodgers and you're playing a terrible, terrible pass defense and you have Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. Still counts. Like, points are points, and I'm happy to see points. I'm not arguing either way. Was good the week before against Miami. Also a pretty bad defense. 2 warm weather games. Now it's 20 degrees. Now it's windy in MetLife, like it was a few weeks ago. And you're playing a better defense, a well-coached defense. You're going to have to score points to keep up with our old friend LaFleur and McVay and Stafford and Kupp and Puka and Kieran Williams and everything that they do. And the discourse is certainly at an inflection point where you know how these things go. They get a life of their own. I think it's a little premature to be making any proclamations because the Jets narrowly beat Mac Jones and the Jaguars. The Jets go out and they beat the Rams. I think this is like the kind of thing with the Jets organization where if you ask me today if Rodgers is going to be the quarterback next year, I'd say it's about 20%. And that's probably high from like the rest of the opinions, I think, of the rest of the Badlands gang and what we talk about. I feel like everyone feels like it's less than that. I feel like it's on the high end. I would say if they beat the Rams, it's probably like 35%. I would say if they then beat the Bills, it's probably like 50+%. I don't think the Miami game matters either way because that's going to be like the classic Week 18 backups, like whatever game because Miami's out of it now. I don't know. I think they'll probably lose, but I'm curious to see if it's a shootout and how competitive they are, or if we get some regression to the mean back to the 198 yards, 4.7 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 interception type performance. So what are you thinking about this matchup and what we can and can't learn from it?
Right. There's a lot of weather watching here, but you would think there's going to be plenty of points in this game. I think the Rams, they're a little reckless on defense. Jared Verse can get after the quarterback. Their front can get after the quarterback, but if they don't, they're not overly responsible against the run. They're not a talented unit on the back end. You can throw the ball over their heads. So in theory, the Jets should be able to get their points in this one. I don't see the Jets having an answer for the Rams offense in this. Their offensive line is healthy now. They have really good balance. They can run the ball downhill with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. They scheme targets to Puka, who is so good after the catch and before the catch. I mean, Cooper Kupp is, I get it, the goose egg against the Niners, but it's still Cooper Kupp. And when he's out on the field, the amount of attention he commands can open things up for a lot of other guys, most importantly, Puka Nacua. Stafford still throws the hell out of the football. And once again, the Niners game felt like an outlier. Even though they won, it was a lot of it was really ugly. So I just think the Jets defense, especially a guy like McVay, as we saw with McDaniel with the Dolphins, they just have a lot of the answers of the holes of what Ulbrich is trying to do right now. They're not really, the Jets are not good against screens or short area manufactured touches. They aren't great in coverage anymore. Like, Sauce is starting to look more confident, but he's only one guy, and Reed's been banged up. Their pass rush is easy to game plan against, which is scary. McDonald is a factor. Quinnen gets double-teamed nonstop. Reddick's a total zero, and whoever they keep rotating in next to Quinnen is horrible. Like, I don't even have to go through the names. They're all horrible. So that's the problem is if you're not making Stafford move a lot, this is an offense that creates a lot of space and has balance to use play action that I think it's going to be a really hard day for the Jets defense. I really, really do. And you and I have kind of alluded to the Jacksonville game doesn't count. The defense didn't play good against Mac Jones anyway, so I don't even know why I have to caveat that. You and I have been alluding to, it feels like the Jets are going to have one game left in them where they do all the things that they weren't supposed to do. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. It just doesn't feel like this game. It doesn't. I just think McVay has a lot of the answers against this scheme. I think the Jets will score points. I think it'll be kind of in the Seattle mold where it's somewhat entertaining, right? I think it'll be an entertaining game. I just think at some point the Jets will run out of gas in terms of how much they can keep up with the Rams by the end of the game, whether it's Rodgers taking a sack or, once again, they don't have balance because they're chasing points, so they're throwing a lot. You get a bad tip pass. I think it'll be depending on the weather, I think it'll be a relatively higher scoring game, but I just think the Jets are outscored in this one, which will kind of kick the can another week of, should Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams be back? Which is really good for sports radio and the podcasting world right now.
I mean, listen, I want Devontae Adams back no matter what. I'm biased because I play receiver. I love watching good receivers. And that catch he had on third down was almost as hard as the Garrett Wilson catch early in the season. Like, that catch was insane. It's also insane that was the Jets' 3rd and 5 call, but we all knew they were going to him, and it worked. And if it works, you can't complain about it. I would say these next 2 weeks are the discourse bowls, right? Like, this is either going to become a very even, complicated, raging debate, or it's going to very quickly get put to bed if the Jets go out and they look like crap on offense against 2 playoff teams. So either way, from a draft position, I think the Jets are going to pick somewhere between, I'll call it 5th and 10th. Maybe it swings a little bit, but that feels like roughly where they're going to end up. I think they'll probably win one of these final 3 games, probably the Miami game at home to end the season. And they'll pick 7th or 8th. And, we'll talk about,
you think they got one more win in them?
I think they got one more win in them. I don't think it will be the Rams. If you ask me today, they will lose a relatively competitive, high-scoring game to the Rams. They will get absolutely destroyed in Buffalo, destroyed really bad. And they'll beat Miami in the most forgettable Week 18 game ever and pick 7th or 8th. And we'll spend the offseason talking about, could they get Mason Graham there? Is it a different defensive lineman? Should they take Tyler Warren? Is that too high for him? But they really need a tight end. And I think here we are again. And I think if it goes that way, it probably skews more towards Rodgers not being back unless he's awesome in both those losses, and he's really awesome in Week 18. But we'll see. Yeah, nothing surprises me. I don't want to, again, reacting to the Dolphins and Jaguars is one thing. The Rams are a good team, and I know the Jets have the advantage of being home and having them in the cold weather, but you put a little more stock in a performance against a Sean McVay coach team than you do against a Doug Peterson coach team right now. So let's see how it plays out. I think there's if you're a Jet fan, I know some people I don't know how you watch this stuff. I think they're entertaining to watch. They're bad, and that sucks that they're bad. I think we've all made our peace with that. You've heard Connor and I give our soliloquies on that, and it sucks, but they're not boring bad. They score points. There's always weird shit happening in the games. None of these games are normal games. So it'll be an interesting one. And I'm sure there won't be a decent crowd at MetLife, but maybe you get some cheap tickets and get your kids and family out to the stadium and do whatever. Any final thoughts, CR, before we jump over to War Room and answer 71,000 questions?
I mean, probably a good game to go to if you're looking to take a kid to his first Jet game. You get to see Matthew Stafford, one of the greats of this generation, high-flying offense of the Rams, and I think the Jets offensively will be interesting in this game, so you should see some scoring. We haven't hit the frigid point of our Northeast winter yet, so you have that. It's an early game. This is kind of I'm sure tickets are hopefully manageable at this point.
I would say so. I guess they are.
If they're not, I'd just give up. I really do. I'd rather this than Miami. I'm torn on that final Miami game. While I agree with you, it feels like the stupid final game of the season that they win as much as we hate Miami. What if Mike McDaniel's coaching for perception of the job security around him, and he just comes out with the classic, he coaches circles around this defense all the time. Yeah. But would they throw Tua out there in a meaningless game in MetLife? These are all things we'll discuss that week. Right now, let's finish this thing out. I'm hoping the offense stays hot. I really am. I'm not rooting against Rodgers or it's fun to watch them score points. We've said it from the jump. I don't care how bad the season goes. If Rodgers can have any record that Fitz has right now in the Jets record book,
that's a win. Big win.
That's a giant win. I want to see Garrett Wilson get over 1,000 yards this weekend again. And I think it's good for the younger players. I think these are really important reps for this offensive line because they are now playing in a pass script offense that's taking shots, and they're getting real pass sets under their legs as a cohesive unit with communication from Olu to Simpson to Tittman to AVT. And, you know, obviously we really want Moses back on this team with a contingency plan behind him. But I think that there are meaningless games in the standings and you're playing for draft position for a lot of people. But I don't think they're meaningless games for the young guys on the team for the future. I think these are really important reps for them. And it's just good to see a little bit of positive momentum from them. You don't want to be, you know, what the Giants and the Raiders are going through right now, where like they look like they literally need to scrape the barrel dry and go into next year and almost teach football fundamentals to an entirely new 53-man roster. Like, you could say what you want about the Jets. The season's been awful from an expectation standpoint, but you don't feel that way about the roster. We say it all the time. You feel like with the right coach and now the young guys on a good trajectory, you feel you can come in and actually run a program over the summer and you could confidently say they could be a middle-of-the-pack team. So that's why there's a difference between rooting for draft position, which most of the time I do, and also understanding that like there are real football development outcomes at stake here that matter, and hopefully they can keep that aspect going.
Amen. Let's keep that Olu tape cranking. Putting Connor and Dan and the rest of the team in heaven when they're breaking it down. And all right, we're going to jump over to War Room. We'll be live on the feed tomorrow. Make sure to upgrade if you haven't yet. Get those bonus video episodes. And that much talked about docuseries. Of course, we'll be hitting War Room along with the draft guide, on ground at the scouting combine, and about 17,000 other things. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll talk to you soon.